Call to order the Grant County Board of Commissioners work session meeting for August 16th, 2016. Welcome, everybody. Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance and the salute to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, as the symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures.
Are there any changes that need to come on the agenda?
No, sir.
Can I get a motion to approve today's agenda?
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the work session agenda. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. The general purpose of a county work session is to inform the Grant County Board of Commissioners of the agenda items that will be addressed at the next regular meeting, and for the department heads and other elected officials to communicate with the commissioners in regards to matters in their respective departments. In accordance with Grant County Resolution 1601, we welcome the public to attend county work sessions. However, there will be no public input permitted at this meeting. Next item on the agenda is the New Mexico CAP entity update. Anthony?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to thank the Commission for allowing me to give an update today, and secondly, I'd like to thank them for putting me first on the agenda. I think you guys have a pretty long agenda today, so I'm going to try and make this as brief as possible. I put a copy of what I've got up on the TVs in front of you. And this has to do with the proposed action of the New Mexico CAP entity. This is what we've sent to the Bureau of Reclamation as a proposed action to get the NEPA process started. Probably the easiest way to explain it is there are a couple of pages, a description of exactly what the potential diversion may look like. But I think it is probably easier if we go on to page 3 to be able to show you. In this presentation, we have what's called Alternative 4, which was chosen by the CAP entity in 2 separate phases. The first phase being a phase which has a diversion and what's called an ASR, or Aquifer Storage and Recovery. Now, as far as location, I don't see if you can see my mouse up there, but the top of the page, we have a blue dot, and then we have a yellowish area and a brownish area up on the top of the page. That's an area that's been identified for potential inundation and pretty much creation of a wetlands. What the idea behind this project is that to divert water out of the Gila during not necessarily flood stages, but stages relatively high, and divert water and put it back into the existing aquifer. What the concept is to slow the water down. Currently, when we have high water, it runs by, we're not able to recover it, we're not able to store it, we're not able to do anything. Well, what this does is try to inundate the existing aquifer, the floodplain. We try to flood it with water from the river so that we can hold that water back, for a little bit longer. Well, currently, we have a couple of months that the farmers have some real issues recovering any water for ag. And that's usually in May and June, and sometimes even into July. And so what we're attempting to do is to try and store water in the immediate area so that we can recover it during those months when you need it the most, until we start getting the monsoons. And so we're trying to take that spring water, that spring runoff that we see, and because of the burns that we've seen, the scars on our forest lands, what we've seen is that when it snows or rains, we have an occurrence that happens rather quickly. And instead of being able to hold that snow, because there's a lot of vegetation, the sun shines on it because there's no trees, it melts and it comes really quickly. So during the spring months, what we're trying to do is trying to hold some of that water back so that we can use in those dry months. Now, we haven't really, the next phase of this is actually to do all the engineering necessary to prove out the concept, to see what type of infrastructure. The diversion itself has been talked about actually being subsurface diversion, meaning that there'll be a Kiwanda stream beneath the surface of the river, so that there's not any real dam or any structure that prohibits fish passage or any type of recreational restraints. And that's some of the things that we've seen. The New Mexico Camp Institute has been really proactive in trying to take comments from the public and trying to incorporate them to our plan. And so the second part of this concept has to do with the recovery portion. Here we have in the lower Gila Valley, and you can see here where it says those collector wells, and the two large blue areas. Well, those potentially could be some additional infiltration areas, and because we don't only store water for the immediate area, but potentially we could store water for the Verdon Valley. The Verdon Valley, they lose their water probably a month before the Upper Gila Valley does, and so they have to resort to pumping. Their ag economy is a lot larger than the Upper Gila is, and so we have to take into consideration that the Hidalgo County and the ag producers in their county can also have to be able to meet a water demand. So also, if you'll see, there's also rainy collector wells there. These wells are provided there for a couple of reasons, and I'll get into the first reason. Being able to recover the water. If we're storing water in the aquifer and we're slowing that water down, we still need to be able to recover it, because the surface water is still going to be the same. But what we're having issues with now is all the water that is in the river during irrigation season is all inside the ditches. And the river goes dry in certain reaches of the river. The habitat sort of suffers because the irrigators are taking their rightful water, the water that's owed to them as farmers and ranchers. And so what the concept here is to use these collector wells to provide water for the ditches. If we can recover water, take that water from these wells, inject them directly into the ditches, then the water in the river stays where it's beneficial, and the river never stretches, those stretches of the river don't go dry. So this is the first concept. Okay, and that has to do with the initial phase. Phase 2, which is the same alternative, has to do with the storage right here in Wind Reservoir. The Wind Reservoir storage has been pre-engineered to be able to hold approximately 3,500 to 4,000 acre feet of water, which is about double the size of Bill Evans. Now, one of the reasons why we chose Wind Reservoir as one of the first alternatives is that it's also, you can also expand up the canyon. You should be able to expand by excavating the area. It's not a real deep canyon. It's a little bit flatter up there on the mesa, and so you're able to excavate further up into the canyon and potentially get up to 10,000 acre feet in that area. So this is all long term. We try to, in our project, we try to meet a couple of needs. Number one, the immediate need that the river and the farmers need because of the limited water supply in the dry months of the region. Second, we're looking at long-term storage for AWSA water, for adjudicated water, even for water in the Burden Valley, because they currently have a right to water they're not able to access, because the only storage facility that's connected to the Globe Decree is actually in San Carlos, which is already in Arizona. So it doesn't benefit the Burden Valley to be able to have those water rights without being able to access the water. So what we're wanting to do is try to create a storage so that we can actually benefit not only the upper Gila but the lower Gila also. Again, that's pretty much. There's another portion to this phase 2, and that has to do with a potential pipeline. I don't know if I can get it all on the screen here, but a pipeline from this Gila Gauge site up at the top, and also come all the way to the reservoir at Wind Canyon. That's where there's a gravity feed concept to this one. It's attractive because it's gravity feed. Now, I don't think that we can actually fill the reservoir. The numbers don't match, but we can get it about 70% full. And so I think that's there's several pieces to this puzzle that I think are interactive. Number one, you have a diversion, which I think is probably the building block to any of the projects that I'm going to go through here in the next few minutes. The idea of having a diversion that doesn't eliminate recreation, that allows for fish passage, that is pretty doesn't create a lot of impact to the ecology. We're trying to focus on that, and so but being able to deliver the water through gravity flow or through this ASR, we feel that it is going to be extremely beneficial to everybody involved as far as the ag is concerned. If we move on to the next slide, my mouse doesn't seem to be working too well. We can see what's called Alternative 1, which is the second alternative that was chosen by the New Mexico CAP entity. This is a little bit different project in that this is a diversion at the Gila Gauge site. It's still the same site, but it actually takes water to Spark Canyon. Spark Canyon was initially looked at when there was a diversion project that came from the Turkey Creek area, and then there was a tunnel or a canal coming through those mountains there to fill up this reservoir. Well, here we have we have a pipeline conveyance, which is partially gravity feed, but it would have to be pumped up into the reservoir. This infrastructure is a little bit more expensive, but the CAP entity decided to put that in there because potentially this has the long-term storage that potentially would be needed if, for instance, the municipal area needed water. This storage has a capacity of about 45,000 acre-feet, which is 15 times the size of Bill Evans. So this is a substantial amount of water. The CUFA and the AWSA allow up to 60,000 acre-feet of storage, and so although we didn't get to the 60,000 acre-foot mark, 45,000 acre-feet is a substantial amount of water. We take a look at the town of Silver City uses about 2,800, City of Deming about the same, the surrounding areas kind of add another 1,000 acre-feet, and so if you look at a reservoir that size, you can store a lot of water for municipal use. The rest of the proposed action has to do with the Burden and the Red Rock Valley. It has to do with improvements to their existing infrastructure, to their existing diversions. There are 3 diversions on the river in Red Rock, and 1 in Red Rock and 2 in the Burden Valley. And so in order for them to take AWSA water, if we store it upstream, or if we're able to slow it down, in order for them to divert, they have to go through the NEPA process just like all the rest of the project. And the last portion of it is the San Francisco Basin diversions. There's 17 diversions from the San Francisco Valley that they want to do some improvements to the infrastructure, being able to deliver and potentially have on-farm storage. So this would be a little bit different type project in that it actually divert from the San Francisco during high flows and store on smaller ponds on farms so they could use during the dry season. Their water goes by so fast that there's very little farming in Ketchikan County anymore, and so it's a trying to get them to be able to utilize the water a little bit more efficiently. So that covers pretty much all of the project itself. In your packet, I put some preliminary estimated costs. And so, you see up here, maybe I can make this a little bit bigger. Is that better? Whoops. Now I did it. I have to go to alternative 4. Alternative 4. The first thing that the Mexico Cap Entity wanted to do was try and get something that an initial phase that would be they'd be able to pay for with the existing money that they have currently. That's the first phase that we went over when I first started speaking to the commission. And it has a total cost here of $84 million. Now, these are all what they call, the costs are indicative to engineering, preliminary engineering, design. Dennis may be able to explain it better than I can, but I haven't quite understood it. If you look here, the subtotal of the direct cost is $56 million here. There's also a $28 million price tag on here, which is identified as indirect costs, and they use a 50% percentile for the indirect costs. Now, this is some of my first projects as far as large water projects are done. I know when we do our projects for infrastructure, when we did our previous projects for, Grant County, where I had most of my experience, well, those associated costs were more at 12% or 15% even when you didn't have all of the information. But that's pretty high, excuse me. So that kind of leaves some room, and so well within the range that we felt that we needed to be to get what I call the building block or foundation. What happens in phase 2 or potentially other alternatives, because during the NEPA process there's another scoping phase where additional alternatives can be looked at, where additions or deletions of our project can happen. Plus there's a phase also for public comment or public input. And during that public input stage, there can also be some other alternatives to look at. I mean, there's a huge push for non-diversion alternatives, which have to change the language of the JPA of the CAP entity to even consider those. So we have a project that's within reason. We have a phase 2, which incorporates most of phase 1. And so the price tag, this is for all of the infrastructure itself. So in my mind, and this is the way I read this, and in asking the engineers, that's the way it should be read, is that this initial phase will provide what called a building block for phase 2. So much of the infrastructure that you see here is just double what's in phase 1. The amount of water taken out increases the cost of the diversion, but not by 16,000, but by 6,000. If you read, people have been misinterpreting this information as this total cost, if you do phase 1, then phase 2, it's a combination of these two costs. But it's not, because this infrastructure already exists. The Phase 1 infrastructure was designed to be able to fit right in to either Phase 2 of Alternative 4 or Alternative 1, so that we could utilize either one of these second or third phases with the initial phase. And so the initial investment wouldn't be lost. We didn't want to make an initial investment on an aquifer storage and recovery project and then lose it when we tried to do a storage project on a reservoir. So they're designed to fit together and reduce the overall scope of what has to be done. Commissioner Hall, I see a look on your face. Do you have a question you want to ask?
No, I already did.
Well, it's up to you.
Yeah, I was just looking at some of the numbers that you've been giving us and stuff, and I'm looking at page 24. I'm not finding those numbers.
Excuse me? On page 24?
Yeah, on page 24, I guess that's what you were talking about when you were giving out, the total cost of 84, and then you had some other numbers you were giving us. But I don't see those numbers on page 24. Where are they at?
They should be right there, Commissioner, in the last column.
Other than the other 84 is there, but what about the other numbers you mentioned?
Well, the other number has to do with the full build-out, which is actually Phase 2. The full build-out is actually Phase 2. The initial Phase 1 is the ASR and the aquifer storage and putting rainy wells for immediate transfer into the ag.
And that'll be part of the conclusion. So on the first column where it says fully built out, is that Phase 2?
That's Phase 2. The full build-out is Phase 2. That would include a reservoir in Wayne Canyon. And that would include a pipeline from the diversion site to Wayne Canyon also. So, and if we move on to the last page of what I've given to you, that has to do with Phase 1. There is a significant higher cost in the reservoir itself because of the size of it. The full build-out would be the size of the reservoir that we actually put in our proposed action. The smaller reservoirs proposed, trying to keep in mind that we were trying to keep within that $80 million mark. And so it's not feasible to spend that much money and only yield 83 acre-feet of water. So because of this situation here, this is long-term here. But again, we see the diversion, again we see the pipeline from the gauge, again we see potential pumps in the valley, all of which are directly related to Phase 1 and actually reduce the overall cost of this larger phase. We're talking about phases that may not be needed, for 50 years. But what we're trying to do, as far as the cap entities do, we're trying to take a comprehensive approach to everything that we do. We want to make sure that we have sustainable water supply, not only for our ag, but for all the communities. And this includes Luna County, Hidalgo, Catron County, and of course Grant County. Now, I didn't bring any more visual presentation, but I would like to, if you guys will allow me to speak on a couple of more things the CAP entity is attempting to do. One thing, we've been in conversations and some preliminary negotiations for the infrastructure at Bill Evans. Bill Evans infrastructure and the infrastructure that provides into the community here. And in speaking with them, is directly related to what I would call a recharge of the members system. There's Town of Silver City, even though they've been an opponent of a diversion project out there in the Gila Valley, both in the Blue report, which had a scenario of taking diversion water from the Gila and transporting it to their well fields for recharge. That was the first time we saw it. The second time is in the regional water system that was proposed for Grant County, to the Grant County Water Commission. In that proposal also, it identifies a diversion from the Gila Valley to do recharge in, for the well fields, for the town of Silver City. And so, I think that, when we take a look at, the overall scope, I think that there has to be a balance between, surface water, the water that we mine out of the ground, which is our wells, and conservation. I've noticed that Silver City's, number one, they have an approved project for some municipal conservation for the town of Silver City, but I kind of want to speak on potential impacts. Sure, they're going to conserve water, but I think that since the hold harmless legislation was passed, I think that that's been a pretty important revenue source for them. So if they decrease the overall amount of water that they're providing, that's a decrease in their overall revenue. And it's my understanding from a gentleman that stopped me in Walmart, seems that people that I don't know now know me, but he was talking about the fact that there was an implementation of a surcharge on their water for infrastructure around the town of Silver City. And so, I don't want to talk too much about it, but what I want to talk about is the overall scope. Yeah, we can do a lot of conservation practices, but I think that we have to take a real good look at what those conservation practices are. On my way in, and for a couple of weeks now, I've seen where they're doing some water harvesting projects. Water harvesting is a concept that Ben Clothier has continually presented to the town of Silver City to try and harvest water in certain locations. It goes back into the aquifer, and therefore it doesn't run down the big ditch, and you actually have some benefit to the aquifer. Now, it's an interesting and it's actually a very effective concept, but when you put those type of structures alongside of a roadway or in the middle of the roadway, and I kind of put Earl on the spot a little while ago and said, what happens when you do those type of things? Well, your roadways fail. Infrastructure is the most costly thing, especially roadway infrastructure is the most costly thing that we have, as local governments. I know that from my experience in Grand County. It's difficult to replace roads. And so, although the concept is really good, and the ideas behind it, we have to understand that our infrastructure is not designed for those type of things. So while there's a lot of conservation measures being identified and pushed forward as an agenda for even this next county commission, we have to take a good look at those things. There has to be a balance. There's got to be, a lot more planning before you just do all this implementation, and then you look back and say, we made an error, and it's a costly one. So we've been allowing water to go by to Arizona for 50 plus years now, and I did a little bit of computation, and even at the camp entity has been continually identified as not being fiscally responsible. Well, when you identify how much value that water has had throughout the years, I did some real initial computations of how much potential you could have gained from that. My computations come out to about $264 million. Just on what that water is worth and value in Arizona versus what potentially could have been used for here in southwest New Mexico. That's a ton of money. We're also doing some negotiations in Arizona right now to utilize what is rightfully New Mexico's as an allocation in Arizona. Currently, that water is set aside for New Mexico. And it's not a junior right, it's actually a senior right off of the cap. It's actually identified as a senior right. And so, our infrastructure that we're developing now, especially in phase 1, is not going to take all that water. We're not going to be able to utilize all that water. But it's reserved for New Mexico and that's what's key. Second, that water has a value in Arizona. And what we're trying to do is trying to negotiate some means of being able to identify that value and utilize that for Southwest New Mexico. So while we're being criticized for taking this huge lump sum of money and using it for some alternatives that may or may not assist everybody in Southwest New Mexico, we are identifying how we're building some building blocks so it can be utilized, and attempting to try and get a revenue source for all those other water projects that people say that we can't fund because we're using up the money. Now, I don't know about you, but when you have what's been identified as a pot of gold, and you keep on taking from the pot of gold and nobody puts anything in, well, eventually that pot of gold is going to be empty. If we can identify a revenue source by doing recharge from the infrastructure, by that value in Arizona, then we have revenue. Then you have revenue forever, not just for a couple of years. And so I'll quit because I know you guys got a bunch more on your agenda, but that's what we've been working on. And if there's any questions, I'll certainly answer them right now.
Commissioners, are there any questions?
I just want to make a comment, Anthony. I asked you to come and give this presentation. I appreciate it. So, I appreciate bringing the truth forward, because there's always some stuff that's stretched out in the public and gives them a different perception. So I appreciate you coming forward and giving us a cost analysis and an explanation of what we're doing. I hope that many people see this on CATS and understands a little better what's going on versus the fibs that are being told out in the public. So thank you very much.
Anthony, what is the process now?
Well, we're entering into the new process. There will be a purpose and need set for the process, and then there'll be what's called a notice of intent. And the notice of intent starts the NEPA process, and that starts all of the scoping and the public process, the environmental analysis, and then that moves forward. It's probably going to take the next at least 3 years.
So that would probably answer my next question, the timeline.
Well, we have a timeline, we have a deadline, not necessarily a timeline, but we have a deadline of, December 2019. And there's a lot more engineering that has to be done, a lot more development. But I would like to make one more comment, and as people watch, and it has to do with Commissioner Ramos' comment, if you look along the river there on any of these photos, and there's no dam on the river. People still feel and still have a misconception of the fact that there's going to be a dam on the river. There's no dam on the river. We're trying to make the diversion to where it has little to no impact. And so I get asked that all the time. When are you going to put that dam in? By two different sides of it. We don't need a dam on the river. To where I don't want to run my boat on the river. I mean, on the lake that you're going to build. So there's no dam on the river. There's two reservoirs identified. Neither one of them are on the river at all. So.
Anthony, on the infiltration area, the lands that you're talking about, are those private, or are they government? Do you know? Or a little mix? Or
There's actually a combination of both. Some are on TNC, Nature Conservancy land, up near the top. Is that what you're asking about?
Mm-hmm. The orange and the yellow.
Right where the Gila gauge is, down until you see where Mogollon Creek comes in, right below the yellow, right there. That's Nature Conservancy. There's a agreement between the Nature Conservancy and the state of New Mexico, and there are some protections on that property right there. But what we're trying to do is work through the language in those, because if we're creating a wetlands and preserving the integrity of the area, then we're really not doing anything detrimental to the ecology.
It's quite the opposite.
I would think so, and that's why we would like to show. And even when you do the NEPA process, you have to identify mitigation measures if you are creating an impact. And these are some of the mitigation measures that we're trying to accomplish. This is it's been an extremely long and rigorous learning experience for me, for sure. And there's a lot more to it than we can see in our newspapers and even on our presentations, because it's pretty comprehensive and pretty technical. So, but yeah, we have TNC, then we have forest, we have some more private properties, a couple. Most of it, except for a small sliver, has to do with Nature Conservancy and the state of New Mexico and the Forest Service. But also we're proposing, a pipeline buried underneath the ground doesn't, once we have one single high water event, you won't see that any longer. It'll pretty much erase any impact you may have.
And now, just because I want to make sure I understand how that works, because you have farming below that infiltration area, so that infiltration would be infiltrated if you and inundated, I think you used that word, throughout the flood season, and then that would slowly get drier through the dry season and would keep water in the river, or some water in the river?
It would keep some water in the river, but because we infiltrated the valley, the aquifer storage would actually be higher. So that's what those wells are identified for. The wells will be able to directly deliver to the existing ag.
Okay.
If you deliver water to the existing ag, then you don't have to divert it out of the river, right? So that's what the concept is. Keep water in the ag ditches, keep water in the river at the same time.
Okay. In your phase one of alternative 4 or 1, whichever one, is your phase one standalone if there was no further funding?
Yes. Now, it does provide an immediate benefit to the ag community. Now, it doesn't, however, provide any municipal. So it's identified purely for ag. But it could, if you'll read, there's also a study being done that was done by New Mexico State University. And
then it's got to be right. That's all I got to say.
Well, what it does is identifies potential crops that can be grown if there was, some additional water for the Gila and the Verdon Valley. And what they said is it could potentially increase the economy, the ag economy, by $5.2 million annually. So even though we have an initial investment, and a substantial investment, I'm not going to argue that, it doesn't take long at $5.2 million to make that investment up. Within 10 years, you've already made a good chunk of that investment up. And so I think that we're using some common sense, some simplifying the project some, and I think it's a good, beneficial project, and not only for the ag and not only for the economy in the Southwest, but also for the river itself. I think that we're making every attempt to make that true.
Okay. So is Bill Evans, the stuff you talked about at the end, is that the only place you're talking about municipal water, or is the Wynn and Spar, would that be municipal water also?
Potentially long range, we're looking at, not so much Wynn because it's on the wrong side of the river, but Spar Canyon potentially for long-term identification. We're not really spending too much time engineering or doing those type of things because we feel that that's long-term. Even though the city of Deming said, we'll take out every drop of water you can apply to us, we're looking at long-term because of the amount of money that we have currently.
Okay.
So long-term it's been identified, but it could also be linked to Bill Evans. It would be minimal infrastructure to link it to Bill Evans and utilize the same infrastructure that already comes into the Members Basin.
Okay. If there ever came to pass a phase 2, are the only waters that are able to be stored in a reservoir, whether it be Wynn or Spar, are they only AWSA waters, or could farmers or other holders of water rights store water in those locations also, so it wouldn't all be AWSA?
Once the infrastructure is built, now we have to go through the NEPA process because the New Mexico unit is identified for AWSA water. Now, that's specific. But once the infrastructure is built, it could be used to store, and we call it colored water. It could be used to store adjudicated water rights for the Gila Valley. It could be used for Globe Decree water, which I explained now is stored in San Carlos. And so there's absolutely no benefit from that water. And there's a substantial amount in the Globe Decree for the Verdon Valley. So all of that different types of water can be stored in these. And right now, what the idea is, we've taken a look at these reservoirs unlined. And that way the delivery potentially could be through the aquifer itself, utilizing the river system itself to deliver water. Well, there's a lot of seepage in the ground out there, and while it potentially may cost some to store the water, if you can deliver water for a longer period of time, and that cost savings to some of those farmers, which, as I've identified, extremely large amounts of cost associated with pumping, then that's a huge benefit to that economy over there. So it can be used for any different water you want to use it for.
I think that concludes my questions. Management have any questions, guys? Thanks, Anthony, for coming and clarifying some stuff. Appreciate the information.
Thank you.
Okay, next item on the agenda is to review the August 18, 2016 regular meeting agenda. For that, I'm going to turn the meeting over to Charlene.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. We will begin with your financial reports. Item C, approve, disapprove August 12, 2016 expenditure report. Linda, would you go over the highlights of that, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. In front of you, you have a expenditure report totaling $2,797,317.26, and this includes AP checks of a total of $2,339,521.58. There's a check in there to Ascent Aviation for Jet A and Aviation gasoline in the amount of $57,874.61. A check to Stoughton Construction for the conference center remodel and roof repair for a total of $230,459.19. A check to Artesia Fire Equipment, and this is for miscellaneous fire equipment for Lower Members Fire Department, and that total is $87,203. A check to Cooper Enterprises Earth Moving, and this is for a water truck for the road department, and that is for $16,000. A check to New Mexico County Insurance Authority for the fiscal year 2017 workers' comp contributions, and this check is for $226,005. There's a check in there for Engineers Incorporated, and this is for a project payment for North Hurley Road Colonias project, and this is for $11,505.78. There is a check to ASA Architects, and this is for a project payment for the Alice Mesa substation. This is for $23,869.37. A check to Hallway Construction, and this is the final payment for the remodeling at the administration building. This is for $28,793.80. A check to Mastercraft Metals, and then this is the final payment for the road department roof repairs, and that is for $63,150.35. There's also included in here payroll checks for pay period 15 for $214,526.97. Pay period 16, $226,638.29. And there's academic incentive and Sheriff's Department route allowance included into this. Total payroll is $457,795.68.
Moving on to new business, item D, There will be a brief presentation from Ms. Krista Bolt on the Freeport-McMoran Community Investment Fund in relation to the partnership with Western New Mexico University School of Nursing and Grant County Senior Programs. The county received a $20,000 grant, Freeport Community Investment Fund grant, and what we will be doing with this is we're partnering with the School of Nursing. They will be going into each of the senior centers 1 day a week and providing health screening, blood pressure, different types of blood work, those sort of things, trying to promote healthy seniors and also to increase participation in our senior centers. She'll just give you an update on that. She's been helpful in making all that happen. Item E, approve, disapprove proclamation declaring September 17th, 2016 as Recovery Grant County Celebration Day. This is requested by Mr. Jim Heldert, and this is a proclamation supporting friends and neighbors in recovery in Grant County. Item F, approve, disapprove the transfer of 3 2006 Crown Victoria vehicles from the Grant County Sheriff's Department to Western New Mexico University Police Academy. We have a request from Captain Flam to donate these vehicles to Western, and this was requested by their director of the Police Academy. You don't see any issue with doing that. They're not being utilized. Item G, approve, disapprove fiscal year 2017 fire protection grant applications for the following volunteer fire departments. There are applications from Lower Members Volunteer Fire Department, Santa Rita Volunteer Fire Department, Tyrone Fire Department, Upper Members Fire Department, and Fort Baird Fire Department. This is an annual fire protection grant program that comes through the State Fire Marshal's Office. These departments have made applications for various things from apparatus to SCBA's. And I think one of them was actually a building. All of them will utilize existing fire funds that they have or apply for NMFA loans to go in addition to this funding. It's a $100,000 grant. Item H, approve, disapprove county equipment inventory deletion listing. In your packets, there's a very lengthy list of old and obsolete computer equipment that needs to be disposed of. Take a look at several pages.
How is that? The hard drive's all been cleaned?
She destroys the hard drives and moves them, and then they can go into the landfill once those have been removed.
Because they actually have recycling for electronics.
Yes. Any other questions on any of those items? Moving on to agreements. Item I, approve, disapprove agreement number A-16-37, capital appropriation grant agreement number 16-A2435 with New Mexico Department of Finance and Administration, Local Government Division to purchase and equip a chip spreader for the Road Department in Grant County in the amount of $100,000. These are the capital appropriation grant agreements from the previous legislative session.
I guess we better sign those since we've already got the chip spreader.
Yes. They do give you provisions to spend the money ahead of time. Chance to take, I guess.
Yeah.
Item J, approve, disapprove agreement number A-16-38, capital appropriation grant agreement 16-A2438 with the New Mexico Department of Finance and Administration, Local Government Division to purchase a portable digital x-ray machine and related equipment for the Gila Regional Medical Center in Silver City in Grant County in the amount of $125,000. Also capital appropriation.
We already bought that too.
You have it purchased already? You did, didn't you?
Probably ought to get it done before they cut it.
Item K, Approve, disapprove agreement number A-16-39, agreement with North Central New Mexico Economic Development District Non-Metro Area Agency on Aging for the Senior Employment Program for fiscal year 2017. These are the annual agreements for funding of the senior programs. This is for the Senior Employment Program, which is where we employ seniors part-time in the centers. And it's in the amount of $43,530. Item L, same thing for senior programs, but it is approve, disapprove agreement A-16-40. I'm just going to say AAA, save some breath, for the direct purchase of services vendor for fiscal year 2017. This is the grant agreement that funds the 3 programs, transportation, congregate meals, and home delivered meals, and is in the amount of $246,440. Item M, approve, disapprove agreement A-16-41, an agreement with AAA for a nutrition service incentive program for fiscal year 2017. This is in the amount of $50,200, and this allows purchase of food and for the feeding programs to be purchased locally. Item N, approve, disapprove amendment to agreement number A-15-14, task order number 3 with Bohannon Houston Incorporated to rehabilitate runway A-26 construction phase. Randy, do you want to go over this? Oh, okay.
Good morning. Oh, okay. Okay. This particular task order is for the construction phase, which will be construction inspection, testing, grant management, and grant oversight for the upcoming Runway 826 construction project, which is later on the agenda.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Item O, approve, disapprove extension of general services agreement with OCAM Engineers to July 30th, 2017. OCAM Engineers used to be Engineers, Inc. They've merged with another firm and now are referred to as OCAM Engineers. We are currently utilizing them in a couple of colonious projects, and therefore need to approve the extension of their agreement for 1 year.
And that is,
Item O.
just an item, yeah, it doesn't say, does it say OCAM anywhere?
It's just a letter. It's referred to as Engineers, Inc., and we'll change that to
Oh, okay.
say OCAM.
Okay, that's what I was asking.
Item P, approve, disapprove ratification of Rhodey Law Firm engagement letter for bond counsel services in relation to the 2016 Fort Baird Hospital bond refund. This is to allow the Rhodey firm to represent the county in the Fort Baird hospital bond, the refunding of the bonds. I had to sign this letter in order to get that project moving forward so that it could be done in a timely fashion, and so we're just asking for your ratification of my signature on that agreement. It is. It is. But all of these costs will be recuperated, and the county will not be billed for these, so if that helps me.
No, I'm teasing. I've been involved in this. I know what's going on. And just so the public knows, the state has asked us to refinance those bonds because it's just an interest rate play, to where they can refinance those bonds early. They're actually 2019, 8, but the refinancing would be 18, because they're a 10-year call. But they can refinance them early and save an immense amount of interest. So that's all they're doing. There's no cost to the county at all, zero.
And it's approximately a $6 to $7 million savings for the state of New Mexico.
So,
Any more questions on any of those? We'll move on to resolutions. Item Q, approve, disapprove resolution number R-16-32, adopting an infrastructure capital improvement plan for Grant County projects for fiscal years 2018 through 2022. Misha, would you go over those, please?
Yeah, we did the ICIP. We had to do a small change in the top 5 because the Grant County Detention Center is in dire need of some, what was it?
Replacement repairs.
Yeah, replacement repairs. So we had to bump that one into the number 5 slot. But we went off of information from all the commissioners. So we've got the administration facility upgrade. We're asking for $350,000 for 2018. Grant County Business Conference Center, that is to equip it, and $500,000 for that one. Public Safety Vehicle Replacement Program, $120,000 each year for the next 5 years on that. Corey Caminos passenger bus, got the cost for 2 buses on that one, $210,000 for this year. And then, of course, number 5 is the Grant County Detention Center upgrades. $65,000 is what's really needed to get that upgrade taken care of, because right now they're just the ability to patch it. So when we did that, we had to jump down the county vehicle replacement, which went to number 7 from number 5. And the rest of them are, HVAC replacement facilities, widened school bus routes, county arterial improvements, fire department construction, Hachita is still on there, Fort Baird Medical Center facility water project, Grant County water storage facility. We have our ADA compliance for facilities, still the industrial small business park, courthouse renovations is still on there, Homeland Security, emergency management, and Copper Trails project. And then we jump into the 2019, where we've kept the airport runway on there, even though we're working on that project, just in case we run into anything that we need capital money for it. Again, the Public Safety Vehicles Detention Center got a van this year, and so we've got them one for 2019, try to get them another one. North Hurdy Drainage and Flood Prevention Project. Detention Center needs some equipment and some training also. Riverwalk, Cameron Creek Trail, and Grant County, which is the Tucasa Community Continuum of Care. Again, leave that one on there just in case we run into any issues with the funding that we currently do have. It gives us the ability to ask for capital money for it.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, and maybe you want to cover it later, we could talk later about the conference center. I get a lot of citizens asking about the timeline and, where we're at on that and how much longer.
We're looking at November to have a certificate of occupancy.
I toured it Friday. It's wonderful. I would
told a lot of people. A lot of people question, well, why does it take so long? There was a lot of work to be done.
That's exactly why I toured it. I was standing in front of base and 2 people said, "Why is it taking you so long?"
Yeah.
And I said, "Come and watch." I just walked in there with them. So,
It'll make my coffee group a lot happier when I tell them.
I'm not sure your coffee group's ever going to be happy.
Well, half of them's asleep anyway.
They're just like mine, mad about everything. The HVAC replacement in the county facilities, I know that there's some green money out there. P&M has some grants, and it also includes changing lights to LEDs. That might be something you look into. So I know that at another institution that I work with, it was a savings of like $1,400 a month, and they use about 4% of the lights we use. So something to look into. Commissioner? Okay, we're good. Anything else, Misha?
Commissioner, no.
Okay, thank you. Shirley?
I just would like to clarify the way we bumped the detention center upgrades. It's not just repair things, it's for the security system. So it's pretty critical that we have that it's the video system, the locks, the monitoring, so it's pretty crucial.
Slightly important.
It's still important, yeah. Okay, moving on, item R, approve, disapprove resolution R-1633, adopting an infrastructure capital improvement plan for the Silver City Senior Center for fiscal year 2018 through 22. We were required last year to begin submitting an ICIP plan for each senior center, regardless of whether or not they were ours or not, as long as we're running them. So the town of Silver City is for various improvements to the facility itself in the amount of $25,000. Item S, approve, disapprove resolution R-16-34, adopting an infrastructure capital improvement plan for the Santa Clara Senior Center for fiscal years 2018 through 22, and this is in the amount of $90,000 for improvements to that facility. Item T, approve, disapprove resolution number R-16-35, adopting an infrastructure capital improvement plan for the Members Valley Senior Center for fiscal years 2018 through 22. We included $60,000 for improvements to that facility. Item U, approve, disapprove resolution R-16-36, adopting an infrastructure capital improvement plan for the Gila Senior Center for fiscal years 2018 through 22, and $120,000 for that facility. Any questions on those?
Now it just answers the question that some people ask me, what do you ever do for the seniors?
We'll try.
Show them the budget.
Show them the
And they're an important
budget.
part, I want to correct, and they're an important part of our community. You know, since you've got a birthday,
Thanks
you're
a
much
lot.
older now, you should understand that.
Thanks for the help. I'd just like to see me turn red.
Okay.
You
No
want us
more.
to sing happy birthday too?
No, not really.
You don't want that, no.
No, not really.
Item B, approve, disapprove resolution R-16-37, authorizing and approving the submission of a completed application for financial assistance and project approval to the New Mexico Finance Authority for the development of a comprehensive plan. They provide a minimal amount of assistance. I think we could receive up to $12,500 to assist us with completing a comprehensive plan, which is well overdue. Our plan was done in 2004. Typically, you should update those every 2 to 3 years. So we will just be starting over with a new plan. And so they have these grants available, but based upon where we fit in on their scale, we're only eligible for 12.5, but we'll take it if we can get it. Any questions on that one? Item W, approve, disapprove resolution R-16-38, notice of intent to consider the adoption of an ordinance authorizing the execution and delivery of a loan agreement between the county and New Mexico Finance Authority, evidencing the obligation of the county to pay a loan in the principal amount not to exceed $48 million. This is the refunding of the Fort Baird Hospital bonds that we just discussed. What we have in front of you today, and we'll get to it later on, is two options. We went out for proposals for private underwriting as well as direct purchase bank loan proposals, and also went to NMFA to look at their possible financing of these bonds. And there may be some issues with NMFA as to whether or not they have the ability to do this. So this is one option that we ask you to approve so that there's not any more delays in the process.
Right now, it's private underwriting, isn't it? Is that right?
Yes. And so we have two options in front of you. This is to go forward with NMFA to refinance those bonds. So unless there's a problem with doing both, we would ask for you to consider that on Thursday. Any questions? Item X, approve, disapprove resolution number R-16-39, authorizing the submission of applications for airport aid to the Federal Aviation Administration and to the New Mexico Department of Transportation Aviation Division for runway rehabilitation Phase 2 construction. This is the grant agreement for the funding of the runway rehabilitation. It requires a match from the county in the amount of $68,513, which is in our budget. Questions? Item Y, approve, disapprove resolution R-16-40, a resolution placing a question on the ballot for the 2016 general election to consider whether Grant County should impose a 4 mill levy pursuant to the Hospital Funding Act to provide funding for the Gila Regional Medical Center. I know Brian's here. Would you like to ask him to step forward? And please, if you could step up and maybe just elaborate on what you're wanting. I know your resolution was a little vague about the mills and the use and the term. If you could just clarify all of that for us,
Thank
please.
you, and good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. And if I may, just to put a little context around this issue and this request. Over the past 3 years with Gila Regional, as we well remember, we had a serious financial challenge with about a $9 million negative bottom line in 2013. The following year, we were able to recover and get back to a slightly positive bottom line of about $1.2 million. Year 2, another positive bottom line, but this past fiscal year, we had a negative $3.3 million bottom line. So 2 out of the past 3 years, we've had a positive bottom line, but we're still kind of, if you average it out, riding that break even. This is the most challenging healthcare environment in modern history. We've been talking about that. And when you're at about break even, what it does not enable you to do is refund your capital each year, as you very well know. Healthcare is a capital-intensive operation, very expensive equipment. We have an aging plant, 30-plus-year-old plant, and costs continue to increase every year. We've done a tremendous amount of work to reinvest in our organization. Part of our $3.3 million negative bottom line was due to major reinvestments in our IT infrastructure, in our revenue cycle, which helped to keep many jobs in our community. We had that discussion many times with Mr. Ramos about making sure that we keep our business office people here working. We've been able to do that, but of course, significant cost. I want you to also know, I want to make a point, during this time where we were doing our financial turnaround and we continue to do all this work in our revenue cycle, I want you to know that quality was still the major focus at Gila Regional. A couple weeks ago, we received notification that CMS, Centers of Medicare and Medicaid, they have a grading system for hospitals. We publicly report many measures, and they're available to anybody across the country to determine the best place for their care. And there's many measures in this measure set, and they roll it up to a star rating system. They give each hospital an overall star rating. And the star system is on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the highest. Gila Regional, we got word that we were awarded a 4-star rating, quality rating. There's only 3 hospitals in New Mexico who received the 4-star. There are no 5-star ratings in New Mexico. So, and there's only one other rural hospital in New Mexico that got a 4-star rating. So we are truly proud of all the caregivers and medical providers who continue to work for our community. That puts us in the top 20% of all hospitals across the country in quality. So I want you to know, as we talk about finances, it's always quality first. That's what we're here for. That's our mission. So during this time, we've been riding this break even. Our cash this past fiscal year has decreased from a year ago at about 145 days. We're about 115 days now, which is understandable considering the investments that we're putting into Gila Regional. But if we continue to ride this break even and in this challenging environment, there's a high likelihood we continue to do work, continue to reinvest in our organization, continue to bring on physician practices. These are expensive endeavors. As we've done the research and strategic planning around how we continue to sustain Gila Regional, we looked around the state. And in the state of New Mexico, there's 14 other counties that already support their hospitals in some form of tax support. And Gila Regional, being a county-owned hospital, in many discussions with our board for many months, it was determined that we wanted to seek support from the county commissioners and then ultimately from the voters in Grant County to support the hospital. The support that would be provided to the hospital would go towards equipment and infrastructure improvements that would directly give back to the community, to the county. We're at a place in time, like these 14 other counties. We didn't do it 3 years ago when we were $9 million in the hole. We didn't come asking for, kind of a bailout. We knew we had to do our work first, and that's what we've been doing the past 3 years. So many people doing so much work. We're at a point in time now, in order to continue to grow our hospital and maintain the services that we have, and to continue to bring in services to support our county, we need to seek some support. And so what we're asking for is what many other counties have already done. We're asking for a mill levy support, for a 4 mill levy for the next 4 years to support Gila Regional in capital equipment and infrastructure improvements and growth. Speaking to several hospitals, Taos they recently passed a mill levy in Taos, but they had gotten to the point where they were down to about 11 days in cash. Now, for that to happen, you're barely making payroll at that point. And what we're attempting to get ahead of as an organization is the slide down to 11 days of cash, because on the way down there is where the problems occur. Your doctors lose faith in your organization, they start to leave. You can't recruit new doctors. Your nurses start to leave because they see this as, a major problem. You can't recruit nurses. We understand both the healthcare impact of Gila Regional and Gila Regional as an economic driver for the county. Retirees, if they can't get the services they need, they leave, or they won't move here to begin with. So we understand our role, on the healthcare side and as an economic driver. And so what we're trying to get ahead of is those kind of scenarios where people start to lose faith in the hospital. If we can't replace a major piece of equipment, well, now people need to drive down to Las Cruces or somewhere else to get a basic service. And what is the cost of having to drive down or stay overnight in those kind of scenarios? Excuse me. So as, talking to Taos, we're trying to get ahead of that. I was talking to Nora Lee Hospital in Lovington. They've been part of the mill levy for many years in their county. They're actually, coincidentally, the only other rural hospital in New Mexico who achieved a 4-star rating. Excuse me. And they also have a 4 mill levy in their area. So we're attempting to be very thoughtful about this. We know it's a cost to our community, but the cost goes directly to equipment that'll benefit the community. What we were looking for is, the reason of 4 mills is we have capital equipment and building cost up around $4 million to $5 million a year going forward. We're asking to get into that $3 million, or what we're asking help for is around $3 million to defer some of those costs. And when you calculate that out, excuse me, based on our residential, non-residential, tax base, that comes out to about a 4 mill levy, which will bring us into that $3 million range. And so that's the context I wanted to put around this. Gila Regional continues to work hard for this community. Quality is always first, but like many other rural hospitals in the state and the country, it's time for us to request some help and support from the voters. And so, of course, what we're asking the commission to do is consider putting this on the ballot as a question for the November election to our citizenry. I stand for questions on that.
No, I appreciated talking to us individually and giving us an in-depth report, and you and I had a great exchange about numbers and such, and And so I appreciate what the hospital has done. I appreciate your four-star hospital. It's a part of our community that makes us feel good, you know, besides a good doctor and such. But I appreciate the time you took to sit down with us and talk this over with us. So thank you very much.
And I do appreciate it also. Thank you very much for working so hard and giving us all the numbers ahead of time. I feel we need to continue to support our hospital. We need to continue to try and figure out different ways, as you have been, to reach a higher standard. And I think by getting this out to the voters, hopefully they can agree with it and want to continue to improve our hospital and pass this.
And as the commissioners are well aware, one of the other challenges we've had over the last several years is 3 or 4 years ago, we were getting about $15 million from the state in Medicaid supplemental payments. At this point, that's down to $4 million. That's $11 million that we've absorbed into the organization through efficiencies and other projects. So we're doing our work around efficiencies, but it just keeps coming, the cuts keep coming. Extremely challenging environment.
Thank you for working so hard.
Appreciate it. Appreciate your comments.
Okay. Yeah, I actually think the high was about 18 million, wasn't it, Brian? Right at it. Yeah. And we had a lot of legislation passed that funding was supposed to come from the other side through more insured individuals, and that hasn't happened.
Yes.
So 4 mil, you've calculated that, and I assume you've calculated that to about $4 million, right, Raul?
3.2.
Yeah, we sat together, and matter of fact, I'm generating those numbers as we speak, and I'm going to do a breakdown with on the property owners and how much they're going to be paying more taxes on the 4 mills, and it's about 3.3 million. So that's what we're going to generate. And the interesting thing about it is that's everybody, local assessments, copper production, and state assessed. So it's all included.
I appreciate your help with that.
Thank you.
In 4 years, so we're asking for a sunset of 4 years, and at that time, the voters, if they chose to continue it, they could, but it does sunset in 4 years.
In 4 years, and in 4 years, you can put the question back on the ballot to,
Not us.
well, the sheriff on the commission at that time to pass another resolution to put it back on the ballot of a general election. Or can you have a special election to do that? No.
I believe it
You have
just
to
says
have
general.
election to.
But the timing, it should fall.
Perfect. Okay.
And you'll be gone, so.
Okay, thank you.
And we wanted that to occur. We want this to be very transparent. We'll be able to demonstrate to the commission and the citizenry what the money's being spent on, what its deferring costs is going directly to pieces of equipment that'll benefit the community. We can do that monthly, yearly.
Other questions? So days cash, what are you sitting at now?
We're sitting at, I was reporting at the end of June, we were at 115, and July's financials will come out this week, so we'll know during this week. But as of a month ago, we were at 115.
So you've approximately lost 20 days cash in the last year?
Yeah.
Am I about right?
Yes, a little more. We're at 145, and now we're down to 115, so closer to 30.
30? Okay, and what kind of number does that represent in millions?
So if you do the math, our days in cash are about $200,000 a day, so 30 days, right, 6 million?
So it's about $6 million.
Yes. That's about what we've spent on our Meditech project alone in the last year and a half or so.
Okay. I know one of the things that I'm going to be concerned about as a voter is how do we assure the public that this money is going to be spent for equipment and not commingled into reoccurring expenses?
Correct. We can very transparently report that on a monthly basis to the commission and make that transparent for everybody, have a yearly roll-up so that the commission can see, anybody in our county will be able to see it, but very easy to track and very easy to demonstrate.
Okay. Anybody else? Anything?
So for basic math, if somebody's paying $500, they're going to be paying $2 extra.
$2, you're talking about the mill levy?
Yeah, before they're paying their taxes.
Do you want to field that for $100,000?
Yeah.
If we do that example.
Thank you very much. I was going to give a small presentation tomorrow exactly on all the school
Thursday.
districts, on what the millage is going to do.
Okay, I'm not going to be here tomorrow.
Excuse, I mean on Thursday. Sorry about that. I'll be
No,
by
yourself.
No, I have it broken down on all school districts, and
That'd be
I
great.
sat with Brian, and we went through every single number, through every district, and that net taxable value where we worked on. But we'll break it all down into nickels and dimes. You got it.
Appreciate that.
Thank you. Anything further? Thank you very much, Brian.
your question.
Appreciate it. Oh, one more from you.
Moving on to item Z, approve, disapprove resolution R 16-41, notice of intent to adopt a new animal control ordinance. I'm going to turn this one over to Abby.
I've been working with Commissioner Hall on the animal control ordinance, and recall at our last meeting, we had the resolution of intent to adopt for this meeting. And after hearing public comment at an informal hearing that Heidi Ogas assisted me with, it was last Thursday. There was quite a bit of comments from the interested public. And after that, I felt like maybe they needed a little more time and possibly to come comment to you all together. So I thought, so after talking with Commissioner Hall, we decided to take the ordinance off of this meeting and put the resolution of intent back on this meeting, so you can consider the ordinance at next month's meeting. That will give the public one more opportunity at this Thursday's meeting to come, and you'll have 5 minutes to come and comment on the animal ordinance, and then you'll have all of the commissioners together. That will also give us a little more time to give the feedback that we did receive last Thursday, Heidi and I, to the committee that worked on the animal ordinance, so that they can, if they want to make changes or make recommendations to the commission, they can also do that. And I think this will just give us a little more time, give the public a little more time.
Are we going to do that under public comment?
I thought we would, because that'll give them each 5 minutes.
And that's fine. If I could request anybody that wants to talk about that specific
Ordinance in particular, that you be able to cite your page and your paragraph so we can turn to it and see what you're talking about, rather than just get up and off the cuff talk about the general ordinance, because we'll need to know exact changes that you have issues with to either change them or to move on.
And quite a few citizens picked up copies of the draft ordinance. We still have those at the front desk. We can get them there. And also, Denisha our receptionist in the front, if you come in and ask for her to email one to you, she can do that as well, if you just want an electronic copy.
Okay. So we're not going to do that this week.
So that just gives the committee an opportunity to take those comments and look at them and discuss it, and then we'll make the recommendation to the commission.
Sounds good. We go into AA.
Next item, AA, approve, disapprove resolution R-16-42, notice of intent to consider adoption of an ordinance authorizing the issuance of a series project revenue refunding bonds in a principal amount not to exceed $48 million. This is option 2 for the Fort Bear refunding, which is a negotiated underwriting. Option 1 was NMFA, this one being negotiated underwriting, which I have a sense is probably the direction we will take.
Okay. Bids.
Bids, item BB, approve, disapprove bids B-16-01, rehabilitation of runway at Grant County Airport. Dumas, I'm going to let you go over this, please.
Good morning again, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Excuse me. We recently received bids for reconstruction of runway 826. This particular project is a mill and then overlay of the project. We had one bidder, James Hamilton Construction. Because of the fact that we only had one bid, we've been going through quite a number of gyrations with Federal Aviation Administration, who's providing 95% of the funding on this. The other 5% funding is 2.5 county, 2.5% state aviation division. So We are working on fund coordination with FAA on approval of the grant. We had to go through an Office of Inspector General evaluation, and we're waiting final word of FAA on approval. So the award to Hamilton should be contingent on receipt of the grant from the FAA and the matching grant money from State Aviation Division. So what happens now is, once we award the bid and we submit the grant application, the FAA will then tender the grant offer to the county. We expect that to happen within about 10 days. So the award to Hamilton should be contingent on receipt of the grants. And once we have the grants in hand, then we have the money in the bank.
So how many millings are expected to be produced with this? I see there's two different bids here.
We did a bid option on that, with the county retaining the earnings or the contractor retaining the millings because of the cost differential in there. The actual millings have a pretty significant cash value to the contractor, to the public, or whatever. So the volume of millings is about 6,000 cubic yards of material that are going to be generated as a result of the contract. Because of some changes that Hamilton has proposed to us and to the county, we are negotiating a contract modification with them right now that will be executed simultaneous with the contract. And part of that negotiation is for the county to retain the millings. We originally set that project up because we had excess millings left over from 2 previous projects that we had done at the airport. Since we put the bid together, the bid package together, there have been discussions with the county road department and some others that recognize there's some value to the county. So we're negotiating with Hamilton for the county retaining the millings.
Yeah, $2.66 a cubic yard. I wouldn't imagine we would want to give them up.
No, it's pretty significant cash value. Interestingly enough, talking with Ellen Stott about that, one of the bigger values in the millings is actually the asphalt contents that retain the oil that's in the millings themselves, to be able to use it in recycled paving.
And you're on board with that, Earl?
Yes, sir, Commissioner. What I would like to do with it is bring Brazier in, we get some funding and add more oil to them, have them come in and screen them, add more oil to them and redo that road from 180 to the airport and make it a nicer road and you know, if it ever decides to become something economical out there, that you guys have a good road going in and out of there to the airport.
Okay, thank you.
One of the other issues with that, Mr. Chair, is the FAA's position, and the reason we had to go through this little exercise with them is the FAA paid for that material originally to be used on the airport, so their position was it had to stay on the airport. We brought to our FAA program manager's attention that those millings and that pavement is well over 20 years old, and the hooks that are attached to your grant assurances are for a 20-year period, so technically those hooks have expired.
Any other questions? No? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is recess of the Board of County Commissioners and convene of the County Indigent Hospital and Health Care Claims Board. You have a total of 14 claims for the month of July in the amount of $14,226.29. And that concludes our agenda.
Okay. So it's time
Before we do the county reports, I move to take a 5-minute recess. Second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes. We'll reconvene at 10:35. Call to order, back to order the Grant County Commission work session for August 16, 2016. We'll now stand for county reports. Hey, Mike. Hey, Mike. Hey, Earl, why don't you go ahead and give us a county report? Go ahead, Mike.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. I apologize for making you wait. I'm sorry, sir. I get carried away. Mr. Chairman, Commission members, before I give my report, I'd like to request that Grant County observe a moment of silence for Jose Chavez, the officer in Hatch that lost his life, and also for his family, if you would, please, sir.
Moment of silence for Jose Chavez from Hatch. Thank you very much. I think that was also for every other fallen officer
this year. There's been too many of them.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commission members. I respectfully submit my report for July 9th to August 12th, 2016. Item number 1, our policies and procedures. They continue to be revised and reviewed. Item number 2, on our detention facility update. The detention facility currently has 2 vacancies. Background checks are being conducted on potential applicants. Item number 3, the status remains the same. Item number 4, on our training update. The mandatory 40-hour training is continuing through July and August. Training is being conducted by Deputy Administrator Andazola, who is instructing officers in the area of special management, and PREA, which stands for the Prison Rape and Elimination Act. Sergeant Josh Galindo, our training officer, is conducting the 40-hour refresher certifications, and the total number of hours that have attended so far are 20 who have received their refresher certifications, and we have approximately 12 officers remaining that need to have their refresher training. Item number 5 in our intervention, the inmate support program. The committee met on August 10th to discuss the creation of the crisis intervention team. They've been in contact with the Las Cruces Police Department. They currently have the crisis intervention team, are willing to meet with us and interested individuals from Grant County to help develop a team here in the county. I just have an update on that. I contacted them yesterday, and we do have a date of September 14th at 10:30 in the morning at the Las Cruces Police Department. And currently we have 10 providers, resource providers, who confirmed that they will attend that meeting and would like to go. And I'd like to extend an invitation, Commissioner Hall, to the two CASA committee members, because I think it's really important. This particular team, they will be comprised of resource providers, and they will go out and whenever there's an individual in crisis, the team will go out and assess the individual, find them the resources they need, get them to the resources they need, such as to CASA, and that way the assessments can begin with them and start getting them the help that they need. So I think it's really important. We're going to try and establish that team in Grant County. Item number 6, the Recognition Award Program. Sergeant Chris Lucero has been nominated as Employee of the Month for July. Sergeant Lucero was recognized for his ability to successfully adjust to the supervisory responsibilities on all 3 corresponding shifts. And this is in conjunction with my directive to rotate supervisors every 2 months, which will allow each supervisor to become familiar with the differences in personnel and duties. And Sergeant Lucero displayed leadership and supervisory knowledge while participating in these rotations. So we congratulate Sergeant Lucero for his endeavors. Item number 7 on our detention statistics. The average daily population for the month of August 12th is 86, 8 more than last month. High population males is 73, 2 more than last month. High population females is 26, 10 more than last month. And this increase part of this has to do with the housing of female prisoners from Lordsburg. Currently, on August 12, 2016, there were 91 inmates booked into the facility. Between July 12, 2015 and August 12 of 2016, for 1 year, the average daily population confined in this facility was 69. The average length of stay for this reporting period is 36.27 days. And the other 2 reports that I have for you is the ARC again and the JC5D, if you have any questions on those reports. Okay. Item number 8, our monthly agency arrest totals for July of 2016. Silver City Police Department had 103, Grant County Sheriff Department 38, New Mexico State Police 31, Baird Police had 10, Santa Clara had 7, Hurley Police had 2, and 0 for WNMU. The detention center held 7 prisoners from Hidalgo County. The detention facility, item number 9, the detention facility conducted 46 district court transports. Division 1, there were 36. Division 2 Magistrate Court were 2. Silver City Municipal Court 1. Santa Clara Municipal Court 1. Baird Municipal Court 1. And medical transport during this reporting period totaled 11. So we had a total of 98 transports as compared to 51 for last month. Item number 10 on our probation violations, we had 21 that are currently in the facility, 0 parole violations. Probation violation inmates awaiting transport to sentencing to a facility or to rehab centers during this reporting period. We have 6 right now that are remaining to be transported. The average time for judgment is approximately 30 days from sentencing to transport. Total inmates charged with warrants amounted to 44, and the total number of special management inmates as of 8/12/2016 are 6. That's my report, sir.
Any questions for Mike?
Just one statement. I appreciate the work that you've been doing on the crisis intervention team. That's what it's all about, is to meet and address these people's needs before we have to incarcerate, before we have to have court, before they hurt someone or themselves. So I congratulate you on that.
Thank you, Commissioner Hall. I think the other thing is just bringing everybody together, all the resources that we have in the community, and just bringing everybody together to provide those services for all of Grant County. Thank you.
Thank you. Earl?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. We did finish all of the chip seal projects. We got Santa Clara taken care of, and we went over and helped Silver City last week, and they got done. Other than that, we've been doing some catching up on some complaints because we've been chip sealing so much. We are patching this week, and we'll start Rosedale Road on Monday. We'll start milling that thing up, and as soon as we get done in Southwest, it's actually going to bring in their big plant for that airport job, or James Hamilton is. So that'll even make that job better. They should be able to come in there and pave that in a couple of days instead of 3 or 4 days with their old plant on there. Other than that, it's just pretty much business as usual down there.
Okay. Randy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I want to talk about the fire season real quick. As everybody knows, we've had a lot of rain, and looks like we're winding down the fire season. We had no major injuries, no structures lost in a wildland fire. So I want to thank all the fire chiefs. I want to thank the Sheriff's Department for their assisting us on wildfires out in the county, State Fire, and obviously the Forest Service. Again, we're continuing to look at ways to improve our resources through grant applications, and we are in the process of getting 2 new fire stations, one at PA, which is at Alice Mesa, and Santa Rita is going to be getting their station built over in Hanover. I want to thank Misha for helping us with that, getting that going, and working with the fire chiefs in those 2 districts and making sure that we get the buildings, but we also have the resources to put in there and the personnel as well. All the other departments are working pretty hard. Public Works, obviously, weeds, we're still at that. Baton Park is being used consistently almost every day now, and definitely on the weekends. People are still asking about the conference center, and again, that was mentioned earlier. Cora Caminos, we're rounding out our fiscal year. Obviously, they're a federal grant, and that fiscal year ends September 29th or 30th. So we'll be trying to work on getting that new fiscal year started in September. We did get a new bus, so we've had several now. We're working on those, trying to provide good service for the community, working with the director on that. Other than that, I don't have anything unless you have any questions for me, Mr. Chairman and members of the board.
Yeah, I do. While you're sitting there next to Earl, this just occurred to me. On the runway rehab, how's that going to affect the air service and private aviation on the day-to-day service? Are we going to be able to keep rolling? I know.
Yes.
I let your engineers.
No, we'll still be, the airport will be open.
No, that's pretty broad.
I mean, it will be open. Hamilton Construction is working on ways that Boutique will be flying into the Deming Airport, and Hamilton Construction is working on ways to have a shuttle back and forth. So it's something we're working on right now. I have nothing definitive right now, but the Boutique will continue to run. There will be a runway open that they're not working on, but Boutique will be flying into the Deming Luna Airport, and they'll be shuttling people back and forth.
We think that's
We're hoping at this point, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, that it's going to be a 5-day project. Now, major construction like this, equipment problems and issues like that, I'm hesitant to say that, but that's just the reality of construction of this type.
okay.
I did have our airport manager was in the process of getting with our county manager to make sure that she's on board of what's taking place over there. We just haven't gotten there yet, but we spoke before this meeting, and we'll be having a meeting with her, and she'll be on board as far as information she needs in case she gets phone calls.
Did they have the start date on that bid?
I believe it's September 19th.
All right. Okay, thank you. Sorry to bring out the elephant in the room, but all of a sudden it just dawned on me.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Misha?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, just real brief, again, the ICAP, we've got those pending your final approval on Thursday. I'll get those sent up to Santa Fe. We are working on the contract for the comp plan and, of course, the resolution so we can apply for the grant. That'll get us up to $12,500, we hope. Randy talked about the LS Mesa. Right now we're advertising for bid on the LS Mesa fire station, and just waiting the final drawings on the Santa Rita fire station. Commissioner Ramos and I went and looked at the effluent sites for the wetlands, disbursement of the wastewater for the Baird wastewater treatment plant. Lots of stakeholders need to be involved in that. I think, what are we at, 95% were there. And currently, I think the Forest Service is working on an MOU, and we'll be presenting that to county manager and, of course, our attorney to take a look at before we present that to the commission. And Tucasa, the bio and cultural assessments are complete. The address has been assigned, and I think right now we're still waiting on the town of Silver City and the state to finalize some sort of agreement that they've got on the land, so we can get that ready to send out to bid.
Maybe I hope some of the bore under there. Go to Second Street, and so the utilities can come in.
Right.
Let me ask you a question. On that boring end of the utilities, if in fact, we're talking about a campus atmosphere as far as on that piece of land, will it be sufficient enough to handle additional buildings?
I believe the way that it's been engineered, it will.
Good.
Yes, sir. Any other questions?
Okay, Ms. Manager, you have anything today?
I just have a couple things. I just wanted to let you know, and this was mentioned when I first started here, I'm having a company do a PV system financial analysis of our detention center, this building, and the conference center, and incorporating ACE into that to see if we can utilize solar for some cost savings on utilities. So we're working on that. It looks like it may be a possibility, combining all three. Just looking at the detention center alone, I'm not sure that it's going to work, but hopefully with all three buildings that we could see a potential cost savings sooner rather than later. We also will be releasing an RFP to update our website, this will allow us to increase our transparency to the public, be able to provide more information. Our website is very difficult to maneuver. It would offer the opportunity, for example, the animal control ordinance to be out there on the website where someone could easily find it. So that RFP will go out in the very near future. Bernadette's been working on that. the office remodel for the new commissioners has been complete, so we're ready for that when the new ones come on board in July. And as you can see, the equipment installation in the commission room is now complete, and I think it's a lot better than trying to watch it off of the wall over there.
And contrary to popular belief, that was not paid for with county money. That was franchise fees.
Franchise fees paid for that, yes. And I would like to thank Ben with CAPS for he did a very quick turnaround and did a good job with that. And also, lastly, I'd like to welcome Bernadette Sabowski to our office. She is the new executive assistant for the county commissioners and the manager, and we're very happy to have her on board, and she's a true asset. So, that's it.
Welcome on board. All right, anybody else have anything? That's it? All right. And at this point in time, I take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.